Not yet. Good morning and welcome to how to get out of the friend zone or to move out of the friend zone. And we are privileged today to have as our guest Dr. Maureen Whelihan. She's going to be discussing how to navigate that delicate move, right? From that friendship to a non-platonic relationship. We never know when to make that next move. What should we say? When do we say the word love? And then, how do we get into that special place called the bedroom? Dr. Whelihan is an MD. She's the author of Kiss and Tell, The Secrets of Sexual Desire from Women 15 to 97, but she's super well versed on the guys part too. So I'm glad to see some men here with us. She's a board certified OBGYN who practices in Palm Beach County and has been so since 1997. She graduated Alpha Omega Alpha from the University of South Florida College of Medicine, and she completed her residency at the University of Florida, Shands, Jacksonville. She practices gynecology. She is a philanthropist. She's a volunteer. She was Woman of the Year in Palm Beach and nominated for Lupus Foundation for the best and brightest women in Palm Beach County. She's just an amazing woman all the way around. I'm happy to have her as my doctor, and she always is a straight talker. So be welcome this morning to ask any questions and share. And I know this is a sensitive subject, but she takes it outside. So she makes it sound like we're talking about peanut butter and jelly and the ice cream man, okay? So enjoy this morning. Dr. Whelihan, thank you for joining us. It's all yours.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. And you're absolutely right. Often when I'm talking to folks, because I talk about this all the time and have for years, people who are hearing me for the first time will often say, you're talking like this as though we're talking about high blood pressure, and that's how regular it should be, but there's so many things that influence the way we want to hear about sex or talk about sex. On our first meeting about a month ago, some of those things really came out. And so when I talk to you today, I'm going to be, when I make my generalizations about how men think or how women think, I'm really talking to you about how 80% of men think and about how 80% of women think. And remember that there's 20% in each category that think like the opposite sex. And so, and so it could be anyone here that is totally in line with the other sex in how they think about and are motivated towards intimacy. And I want you to know, we can go off topic. Listen, we can talk about coronavirus and how you have dates with coronavirus. We can go anywhere you want. But realize that this is such an important topic, and anything that helps folks connect and find their next love and hopefully a lasting love is really what's important to Tammy and her crew, and certainly to me. And I probably spend a third of my day talking to people about what they didn't like about their last date online or who they talked to. And a lot of it is misinterpretation or judgment. And if you could sit back and not judge the individual that you're talking to and give them a pass if they say something off, or question them and ask, or say, gosh, that was a little bizarre that you just said that. What motivated that? Or here's how I took it. So I always think of dating as a psychology experiment. So, and think of it as an exciting adventure. What's the worst thing that can happen? It's not a love match. It's a friend. Maybe it's a lifelong friend. And that friend may have a friend that you end up having a love connection with. So, so I don't think any of us can have too many friends. And while we are looking for a partner in life or a love interest, or maybe just a friends with benefits, understand what you're going for and don't try and create that out of your next date. Just try and see who seems to fit the bill in what you're looking for. And so I wrote a couple notes about, you know, how one should think about this. So you've now been chatting with somebody either by email or online or by video who you seem to be interested in, and there's a mutual interest on both sides. Realize that all of that excitement in the beginning that gets us tingly and giggly is really dopamine. And dopamine just lies. And so you have to understand that crazy feeling that feels so right and so good and so into this new person is probably going to wear away in about 6 months. And then after about 6 months, things start to stay very exciting, but now you're thinking rationally and you can focus on all the other tasks in life. And when 1 year rolls around, now it's more like a passionate love, but you start to see the other's flaws, which is good. And then finally at 2 years, it's really a commitment love. So I just had somebody in the office yesterday, and she married the man that she met at church after only 6 months of dating. And now they're 1 year, almost 1 year into the original relationship, or 6 months into the marriage. And she was just sobbing and tearful about how disappointed she was in the sex that they had, because they met at church. They both agreed not to have sex until they were married. Both had had sex in their life before and stopped for various reasons. So this couple was 40 and 47. He was 47, she was 40. I have not yet talked to him yet, but I'm going to have them together. And she was just tearful about what her expectation was about what sex was going to be with this man. And clearly by her description, he has a lot of perhaps things that may have occurred in his upbringing that make him very bashful or anxious. He's really fearful about talking about sex, using the word sex. He calls it a celebration. And so, so these are things that had they dated a little bit longer and engaged in a conversation, maybe that would have panned out and started the marriage off a little differently. So the most important thing is, when you're meeting somebody, do they even desire to be intimate? Some people connect online because they want a companion, someone to have dinner with, someone to cuddle up with, or not. So I think in the beginning, it's important to get a feel of what are the goals in this relationship. Are you looking for a marriage? Are you looking to just share a life together, but still have your own houses, apartments, condos, whatever? Do you want to have sex? Sometimes you can get into a conversation to see if they're capable of having sex. My office manager dated somebody for a year, fabulous gentleman, involved in a million things. We went to car shows, we did all kinds of fun things, but he never, ever attempted sexual intimacy with her. And so then when we were all together, I would, say things like, oh, erectile dysfunction is really common and so easy to treat. We have several remedies, thinking that he would open up to me in private and say, oh my gosh, I need help with this and I don't know who to ask. But he didn't. He never took the bait. And so that relationship for her ended at 1 year, because to her, sexual intimacy was part of the deal that she was looking for. And he just was not going to discuss it, and that's okay. That was his comfort zone. I would guess that he probably had prostate cancer and didn't function, and was embarrassed to discuss that, which he shouldn't have been, because there are ways to be intimate without an erection, but he couldn't get past that in his own life. So understanding the goals in the dating relationship, and these are things that should be asked. And I know they're awkward sometimes, but sometimes somebody's just waiting for you to ask. So somebody's got to sort of step up. And the women never like to be that person, because after all, they're supposed to be, ladylike, and those are not ladylike conversations. But let me tell you, the men would be thrilled if we as women for once took charge of all those embarrassing things. In regard to the ability to function, women are more likely to seek out the solution for sexual function. So for the women, it's often painful sex because of vaginal dryness, especially if they haven't had a partner in 10 years. I had somebody on Wednesday who has not had intercourse in 30 years and now has somebody who's just got her giddy that she met on Bumble. And she's like, we gotta hurry up, you gotta hurry up and fix me. Well, this is skin down there and it doesn't hurry up. But I can give her some tips and I can make her better in 1 month and I can make her like she's 40 again in 3 months. And I can help her get through the beginning, but I can also give her other ideas of things to do while I'm repairing her skin down there. So no panic. But this is why I encourage women at all ages, don't let that area dry up. Assume that your next good one might be around the corner and maybe we should keep it. And it's really healthy for women and their bladder function and their bladder health to have moisture in that area. So keeping it healthy from when you're young is probably a good idea, but nobody ever talks about it except me in my GYN office. One of the most important mismatches in a relationship is natural drive. Men are pretty much, whatever they say, they say. They don't dance around it. They know what their drive is. So if you ask a man how often he has desire to have sex, or if you guys get in a relationship, how often are you anticipating us to have sex? The average individual wants sex 1 or 2 times a week. A person with low drive wants sex maybe once or twice a month, which is normal. And somebody with high drive is more like 4 to 7 times a week. So if there's a dating relationship and now this girl is completely excited by this guy because he's a good kisser and he's romantic and he's just all these cool things and good conversation, and then they start having intercourse and she's keeping pace with him. He's hungry because his normal pace is 5 to 7 times a week and she's keeping up. But really her natural drive is 2 times a week. Well, a year from now, she's going to be at 2 times a week. And he's going to be thinking, I got sold a bad bill of goods here because you wanted it every 5 to 7 times a week. And now all of a sudden you want it 1 or 2 times a week. And so I try and challenge women to understand their natural desire and don't oversell it. And young girls, I get 20-year-olds who come in and say, something must be wrong with me. I need my hormones checked because all my girlfriends want to do it every day. And, I would be happy once a month. I don't really think about it that much. There must be something wrong. And I say, no, there's nothing wrong. You have discovered that your natural desire is once a month. So don't hook up with a guy that wants it 5 to 7 times a week, or there's not going to be a happy marriage there. So understanding what your natural drive is and making sure you fully disclose that before you get involved with somebody. Because, I will say that I think if you can have 1 or 2 good sexes a week, that person with high drive, if is really into the relationship, would still be okay with that. But it's sort of sad when I see people get married and she kept pace until they were married, and then she settled right down into her natural self, and there's discord in the relationship. And so appreciating your natural drive and making sure you have that in the conversation so that at least if the person stays involved, then they're either thinking, I'm going to show her what I got and she's going to change her mind. maybe for the short term, but probably not. But, you know, at least you fully disclosed where you're starting. STD testing, that should really be done right away. So before the first intimate encounter, as you are talking about having an intimate encounter, everyone should have STD testing. So when my girls in my office are telling me they have a new lover and they're thinking about being intimate, not only do I do STD testing on her, but I give her a prescription for her lover. Sometimes I give them several prescriptions with no name on it for the same tests with my signature. And I tell them, put his name and date it, and, you know, just tell me when he's had it done so I can look for the results. No matter what the age. I remember a couple in their 80s, very sexy couple, met online, and he was a man that could function, and she came to my office and had primary herpes. And, you know, you can tell when it's a first exposure versus a, you know, recurrence that may have not been his fault, but he transmitted. Well, he had no idea that he had this because he thought he was fine, and he thought his doctor tested him for everything. His doctor, unfortunately, is not knowledgeable either. And as many doctors, by the way, in the topic of herpes and testing. And so nonetheless, my message to the couple was, well, you know, it is what it is now. We can manage this, and now you're not at risk for each other. So if you really enjoy each other, don't break up just because of this. Nobody ever intentionally gives their partner herpes. It's just a mistake. People transmit virus when there's no active lesion, and patients have no idea that they are shedding virus. So there's ways to prevent that. I had an old neighbor call me not too long ago and said, oh, I'm in a dilemma. I met this guy. We were really loving each other. They're in their late 50s, and we're going to be intimate, but he presented me with a piece of paper that said, you probably want to run in the other direction now that I'm telling you this, but I have genital herpes. And she called me and she said, I was going to run in the other direction, but then I thought I should find out more information. And so she called me and I said, well, let's test you first. Oh, I don't have it. I've been tested many times. I was like, well, did your doctor test this specific? Oh, I said, let's test you. Lo and behold, no surprise to me, but of course a major surprise to her, she already had been exposed to genital herpes and she just had no idea. So here she was going to give up this really great relationship because he was disclosing that he had this. And thankfully she was smart enough to investigate a little further, and now they're a very compatible couple. So there's ways to work through everything. Don't judge someone based on limited information, because there's almost always a solution. I can't tell you, there's very few deal breakers that I come across. Likes and dislikes. Every now and then you probably hear about one of your neighbors or someone else's neighbor who gets into some freaky stuff, and you say, oh my gosh, that's weird. Or I remember a couple that came to see me. She was a very demure, very sweet lady. I knew her well. Her husband was a powerful CEO of a business, and when they came for sex counseling, he was in a suit, a very expensive suit. He looked very important. She looked very meek, and even their body language was that on the sofa. And when we got into the details of why she wasn't having so much sex, he had a couple rituals. And I think some of you have heard this. I may have shared this last time, but he chased her around, and she was fearful of being chased because her dad used to beat her when he chased her as a child. And so I told the husband, you got to stop chasing her because that's a terror for her. And the second was once the chase was over, then he wanted her to spank him. And she thought that was really weird. And so I explained to her why people do that. And she sort of understood it then. And while she thought it was a little different, she wasn't opposed to it at that point. So if you have a particular fetish or a like, or you're attracted to feet or foot massages or anything, if it's a little bit off the beaten path, maybe just have a conversation about it, and feel out the partner and see, if they're trying to run in the other direction. And again, most people will choose to escape the conversation rather than be in an awkward conversation. So maybe sometimes involving somebody with knowledge on the topic can make you feel more comfortable and understand each other, especially if you have a really good connection otherwise. Be kind and be patient. So when you're older, things don't start off just like they did when you were 20. There's a lot of anticipation about, performance and function, and even the functioning individual just doesn't have a good day. And then they're horrified by their inability to perform, and that critical response from the other partner is so important on that first time, because if you gasp and go, oh, good Lord, or oh my gosh, another one of these, that person will never perform again. Whereas if you say, let's try this, or, let's do this, this is really fun, or how about, and you divert the attention away from the fail, then the next time it's going to be a better experience. But everybody's nervous. They're trying to impress the other one, sometimes a little too much. And so be nice with your response. People are most people in the dating realm, or even life, people in life want to be wanted, and they want to be noticed, and they want to be touched, and they want to be kissed, and someone's response to that, even if it's not your type, being rude or short or abrupt can crush someone forever. So try not to get into that position where, even though they're not for you, you just let them off the hook. I remember another dating story from one of my patients, but they were in a restaurant and the service was taking a long time, first date. And he said, I'm really uncomfortable sitting here. Do you mind if I make an adjustment? And she said, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. And then he reached under the table and took off his prosthetic leg and put it on the chair next to him. And she was like, what? And, she says, I feel like I was on candid camera. I was looking around, looking for the cameras. I thought I was being spoofed here. She said, I'm thinking when you're dating, we've talked no less than 2 hours at a time, many phone calls. Yeah, I think you might have said I had an injury in the war, or I had a work accident where I was crushed and I lost my leg, or I had a health concern that I have a diabetic and I lost my lower leg. This guy had a full up leg amputee. So, it was a whole prosthesis laying across the chair. She didn't have much of an appetite after that. But she is a very funny girl. And so she used humor in her amazement. And of course, it was even funnier when she was telling me the story, because I was like, holy crap, you would think you would disclose this. But realize that people are so afraid of being judged. And so, Tammy and I were talking the other day about, some of the other ways to get a feel of behavior and how people are. And, we were talking about the travel industry and just being able to travel and see people when they're a little bit stressed because, let's say, the bus breaks down, or you know, the hotel has an incident, or there's power loss or something, some kind of event that things aren't going as scheduled. It's nice to see how people behave under pressure. And some people become very much more attractive when you're all out having fun and you get to actually learn who they are before you're really trying to study each other for a one-on-one. So I think singles travel is not a bad idea when you're looking for a mate. So you grab a girlfriend or a buddy so that you have some backup, a wingman, or, you know, and then you get to feel out this. I would like to go on a singles cruise just to be like the tour guide, so that like we could do little sidebars when they're, you know, like, oh God, wait, I'm in a dilemma, I need to consult right now, you know. I did apply for that in a cruise line years ago. One of my patients said, you got to do this. I'm like, oh, that's a little weird, but okay, I'll do the application. And sure enough, they reached out, but you had to be really ready to go on a cruise in a moment's notice. And of course, my schedule does not permit that. So maybe now that we do telemedicine, we could like do a remote visit and go, okay, I need to sign on with you today because I've got a date tonight in the captain's lounge at 7 o'clock. You know? So, but anyway, so there's all kinds of ways to enjoy it. But the most important thing is that you're entering into a discussion to find all the things good about the person. And if there's some glaring bad things that just don't work for you, then you just, you know, you say, I think you are terrific and you would be a great, you know, partner for my friend Louise, but I am really attracted to X. So that nobody feels hurt or rejected, because ultimately each one of those rejections nips a little bit away from that person's self-confidence. Whoops. Their self-confidence. And so, so always keep in mind being kind. But with that, I sort of want to, oh, and then my final thing was, let's say you get up and get going, and then it's practice. Practice until it's perfect. The first several encounters are going to be awkward. You know, do you have the lights on? Do you have the lights off? You know, is it daytime? You know, how, you know, if you've gone out and been drinking, which will disinhibit you, fabulous, but your function is not so good after that, as your judgment may not be either. And then the next day you're like, oh my God, I did this and I didn't use a condom. And, you know, now I'm thinking I have every STD in the book. I'm like, well, probably with one sexual encounter, you did not get every STD in the book, but I'll check you for STDs. So the emotion of it is probably, you almost need like a traveling psychologist to help you through those first beginnings. And to me, it doesn't matter who expresses the interest of, I'd love to take this a step further. And that can be simply, do I have permission to kiss you? And sometimes that other person is like, oh my God, I was thinking about that. And I just was afraid because I didn't want to be rejected. But somebody's got to step up and take a chance. And it's usually always stuck with the guy. The guy would probably be thrilled if you said, do you mind if I kiss you? That's pretty little, that's not much of an assault on one's person. And listen, it may change your life and your opinion of this guy if he's like a fabulous kisser or girl. If they're a fabulous kisser, then you're going to go, wait a minute, I did not know that was coming. And so I think asking for a kiss should be able to go either way. And you're going to get a sense after that kiss of whether it's going to go further than a kiss. And so I think traditionally men like to be in charge of that. And I've heard from men that they judge women if they're too ready to jump in the sack. I I disagree with that in general, but it does seem to be a prevailing truth about how men think about women, which is not fair, but life is not fair. So with that, I sort of want to open it up to some of the dilemmas that you've come across in your meeting of people, or where you find the most awkward approaches and how do you get past that. Anybody have a situation?
And before you guys go, I'm going to turn the recorder off. Thank you, Dr. Whelihan. That was awesome. I took notes, but now we're going to go into Q&A, which is too private. So for anybody else who watches this video, we appreciate it and hope to see you on Single Like That today.
There you go.